Good evening. It is Thursday night. It is time for FUB Club. There's a bit of a change of format, so I am on Instagram this time, and I am on YouTube live. So we've got a YouTube channel. You can have a look at that too. Slightly different camera angle. I'm going to focus on Instagram because I don't think anyone's going to look at me on YouTube. Facebook has not happened this time. Apparently I've been a too naughty a person and have posted too many unmoderated nipple revealing photos which have been removed, but we crossed our threshold for the number we're allowed, so we've had a 24-hour ban on the day that we were going to broadcast live. So here we are on Instagram, as we always are, but not on Facebook too. I'm going to post this video onto Facebook tomorrow. I can't even tell the people tuning into Facebook that that's happened because I can't post. Anyway, it's a great evening. Hello guys, hello everyone. I think we're getting a bit of a sigh of relief as lockdown. There is mood music that this is coming to a bit of a close, hopefully in the next week or so. We're obviously waiting to see what we're told, what can reopen, what cannot. But hopefully we are getting through this. So congratulations everyone for bearing up with it. Okay, I've had a few messages, so let's have a look at these. If you have any messages or questions or anything you'd like to ask, any burning questions, then feel free to ping me a message on there. But otherwise I will rattle through the ones that have been sent to me. So, first question, how long do I need off work after a tummy tuck? And this person who has sent this anonymously says, I usually work 6 to 8 hours with no heavy lifting. And we actually get asked this quite a lot. How long am I likely to need following a tummy tuck? Tummy tuck is one of the longer recovery procedures, I'd say, that I do. For breast type stuff, it's usually pretty fast, a week back to office work. But for tummies, you're going to need, well, you'll be in hospital, under my care, you'd be in hospital for 2 nights. I do use drains, and those are normally removed before you go home. You may, you'll then be mobilizing pretty early, straight away. I get you back in about a week's time. And most people tell me that they're able to drive for themselves. They feel comfortable doing so after about 2 to 3 weeks. And then that normally limits when you can return to office-based work. So 3 weeks, you might want to tell your employer more like 4 in order to be on the safe side. They're usually more accommodating if you want to go back early than late. And that's it. You're in a garment for 6 weeks. Then exercise can sort of resume. I tell people they can start to do gentle exercise, kind of core engaging exercise from 6 weeks. And you can do anything that you don't have to, that isn't uncontrolled, such as a rugby tackle, something done to you, and something that isn't explosive as well. By explosive, I mean like a tennis serve. So you would only know it hurt you by the time you finish doing it. So you can do those gentle voluntary activities, and then from 6 to 12 weeks, you're building up what you can do. 12 weeks, you can go into a boxing room with someone if that's your bag. Okay, so that's abdominoplasty recovery. One thing I will say, if you look on my YouTube channel, it's a good channel, if you look on that, you'll see a video of a patient who I saw the morning after surgery, and I'm just having this kind of live video. The camera's on her the whole time with me asking questions. And I just say, how much pain are you in? It's the morning after surgery, it's less than 24 hours. And she says, you know, when I'm moving around, maybe 3 out of 10. So it is, oh, the screen has gone black. We only have sound, Fulvio. I can see him. Go out and come back in. Who, me? Or you guys? I hope you can see me. It seems all fine from here. Let me know. Hey, that's live. So yeah, it's not as painful as you might expect it to be.
Someone today, sorry, just cut in here. Someone today asked me what painkillers they go home on. So what painkillers are they on after a tummy tuck? Yeah,
so it's usually you're usually home on really simple painkillers, paracetamol and ibuprofen. If you need more than that, maybe cocodamol and ibuprofen. It's not that bad. It's not that painful. People are often surprised that it isn't as painful as they were expecting. You'll have gone through childbirth, many of you, having tummy tucks. You'll have had cesarean sections, a few of you, and are sort of expecting a similar kind of pain, and it's sort of not. It's different. And the discomfort, the gradual discomfort over 2 weeks from having your back arched is annoying because you can't stand straight maybe for as long as 2 weeks. But yeah, it's not that bad. Okay, looking at some of these messages. No, it's okay. Vixter Wilkins, you're good now. I'm glad to hear it. Can see you now. Okay, do you inject the tummy with pain relief? Well, Melina, thank you for that message. It's a really, really good question because there's this sort of vogue for rectus sheath blocks. A rectus sheath block is where you put anaesthetic underneath the sheath, the muscle sheath that we repair, to relieve the pain of a muscle repair. And I don't do that. I looked into it, and our anaesthetics will last you an hour, maybe a couple of hours, which, okay, fine, a couple of hours you might think. There are some anaesthetics, some local anaesthetics, which will last actually for 24 to 48 hours, but we can't get them in this country. They're available in the States. It's really irritating we can't get those. Those would be perfect. That said, the muscle sheath repair, I have not found patients report it's painful. And I do wonder if there are some differences in the way it's carried out, because you read online that some of these repairs are really painful. And I do wonder if people are doing different things. If you were to put stitches in muscle, it would really hurt. Hey, I'm going to move over to my wall chart here.
Yay!
All right, hang on one second. I've gone low tech, I've gone old school on this. Can I find a pen? Yeah, I've gone low school on this. All right, so if you have a, do you want to grab the phone and maybe film me, or should you not bother? No, it's all right.
I think it's okay.
Okay, so your muscles in cross section
You might want to turn around when you're talking.
look like that. And stand this side. Your muscles in cross section look like that, but there is a lining of them, and this lining splits so that it goes on the underside and above as well. And if you were to do a muscle repair by passing your stitch into the muscle on one side and into the muscle on the other side, that would really hurt, and that's not what I wish to do. So I pass the stitch, and I think most of us try to. I try to just catch the stitch on the lining itself and just do a whole row of those. And if you only do those and you don't catch much muscle, then it shouldn't really be too sore at all. And I do find patients telling me afterwards that it's not that sore. Now and again, they will, many weeks later when they're starting to do a bit more a bit more mobility, mobilizing a bit more and exercising a bit more, they'll sometimes say, ow, I got this stabbing pain right there. And it lasted a few days and then it went. What's that all about? And what I think is happening there is that one of those stitches that maybe caught a few muscle fibers inadvertently has cut through the muscle fiber, snagged up against the lining, the sheath, which is actually what holds the stitch. And when that happens, it's painful, and then that pain goes away. So, does that technique have any implications? So anyway, that's why I don't inject the sheath, because I've really not found anyone complain of pain in the sheath, except for those sporadic pains a few weeks, months even later, and local anaesthetic wouldn't help those either. Does that technique have any implication on the visual results? Absolutely not. So it is the same muscle repair. In fact, catching the muscle, catching the muscle has no structural benefit whatsoever. Stitches really don't take well in muscle. They don't hold well in muscle. So if I were to catch them, they would eventually pull through. And if anything, I feel that the repair would be less efficient if we were catching the muscle first. Because if you tie a knot that incorporates tissue within it that can't support the weight of that, the tension across it, then it will cut through, and actually you're left with a stitch knot, a tie, a loop that is looser than you actually wanted it to be. And so actually it will then gap a bit. So by not taking any of that redundant tissue at all, no, I think you get a stronger repair, a better repair. I have literally never, ever heard of a patient tell me that their muscle repair has failed after a tummy tuck. And I use dissolving stitches, so the stitches will dissolve by themselves in the fullness of time. I have never known a patient, a lot of you are tuning in, feel free to comment. I've never known of, a muscle repair is something I'm very happy to guarantee after a tummy tuck. It just won't, touch wood now, I've said it, haven't I? Okay. Right, so, oh, okay, thanks. I thought how tight you stitch the muscle. Does that contribute to the result visually? How tight you stitch it, well, that's a different entity. Actually, the muscle is separated in the midline, and what you do during surgery is you identify the inner edges, the medial edges of each muscle, and you reoppose them. I don't try to overstitch them, I don't try to overlap them. I think that's non-physiological and a bit weird, and I think that could affect the visual result, because if you do overlap them, then actually the width of rectus muscle that you have on show externally is reduced, and you have these very, very narrow recti, whereas actually, which will impair your ability to develop a six-pack. So that sort of excessively tightening so that they invaginate on themselves is something I've never been into. If when you bring them close together in the midline, the sheath still feels loose elsewhere, then I'll quite happily tighten the rest of the abdominal wall sheath elsewhere and actually cinch that in, and that does give you a more of a defined waist. But there's a certain limit to that. You can't just keep on tightening this thing indefinitely to get a tighter and tighter waist, a more cinched waist. Some of that is down to what fat there is internal, so-called visceral fat, intra-abdominal fat. And I cannot do anything about that. You're the only person who can do anything about that. It's diet and exercise. Okay, so helpful, reassuring to know. I'm glad to hear it. Right, shall I go on?
Yes.
All right, so next question I have here is, what happens to stretch marks after breast augmentation? Okay, a bit more detail. During my pregnancy and breastfeeding, my breasts went from 32A to 32G, leaving me with bad stretch marks. Are these going to disappear with a breast augmentation? That's my dog. In fact, when he approaches, I might bring him in. I've got a Dachsy, and he's a yapper. That's what small dogs do. And someone must have moved in the same county, so he's decided he's away. So anyway, so I have stretch marks when my breasts went from 32A to 32G. Are they going to disappear with the breast augmentation? No, they're not. They're not going to disappear with the breast augmentation. Stretch marks are skin damage. Stretch marks are essentially a fracture of the dermis, where your dermis, your structural layer of skin, has given way and broken and fractured. And there's an intact layer of epidermis over the top, and that's what you see as a stretch mark. And it's that kind of more mobile, it starts off being red, then becomes silvery, and it's there for life. But that's what manifests on the skin. Now, what people don't like about them, in particular on their breasts, is the fact that at those areas, because they're structurally weak, there is a greater tendency for them to indent as well. So if you have stretch marks plus breast emptiness, then you'll get these kind of indented stretch marks, and when you move, they crease in a funny way. Now, those effects will be improved by filling the breast more. So when a stretch mark is actually stretched out across tissue and not given the opportunity to invaginate like that, to invert, then it looks better. So yeah, it doesn't improve stretch marks, but it can kind of make their appearance more tolerable for you. Now, breast augmentation can cause stretch marks as well, of course, so that's something to bear in mind. And that is more of a risk. You're at low risk, this person who went from 32A to 32G, because your skin has already experienced stretch, it's been stretched. But if you come to us as a 32A and you want to be a 32DD, so you want really, really, big implants, larger breasts in there, as large as you can get, then yes, you are at risk because you're stretching the skin fresh for the first time. The people who are most at risk of developing stretch marks after breast augmentation are those with a small breast size, those who have never had children, those who have never had significant weight gain. And if it happens, I can only think of this happening in one patient, and I don't think I've seen her name pop up, but I can only think of one person who this happened, and I said to her, and it always makes me giggle, I said, so when did these stretch marks develop? And she said, Friday afternoon, between about 4:30 and 5:15. And I said, that's very specific. And she said, well, I look at them a lot. I really like them. So I thought, oh, bless. So I got her in. We can give you a topical cream that will reduce the likelihood of that stretch mark developing. Dog's outside. Shall I introduce him?
First of all, focus. Is
Right.
there anything you can do to stop stretch marks developing.
In the context of...
If you're thinking about having breast augmentation and implants
Yeah.
inserted, how can you prepare your skin to try and prevent their
Okay,
stretch marks?
first of all, avoid those risk factors if you possibly can. Second of all, try not to go crazy big. Try not to put in implants that are sort of beyond your tissue's capacity. Third of all, you can actually prepare your skin. So having well moisturized skin. Okay, that's the dog. I'm going to have to introduce you to the dog. Okay. This is Ted. Ted, that's the word.
No, Ted.
All right. Having well moisturized skin, and we also like a collagen supplement, something called Skin Aid is the one that we really recommend, and we've had great results with and we love. I'm sure others, may be effective, but I haven't researched those others. And yeah, we sometimes put people on a pre-program of that as well to help with skin.
And unrelated to breast augmentation, but if you have stretch marks, how can you treat them non-surgically?
Okay. It can be treated with things like microneedling. It can be treated with, we have a plasma device, a plasma pen that's very good. It can be treated actually with radiofrequency as well. We use an Endimed. So there's all sorts of things that can be done. It's interesting actually, because I often ask, so this is more in the context of a tummy, I often ask women coming for their tummy tuck, so what bothers you? And they'll say overhang, they'll say the muscle separation, they'll say that I can't tone up. And they'll say, what about the stretch marks? Do they bother you? And actually, I rarely find that the stretch marks are a concern, actually. And
I think lots of people consider them their tiger stripes of, powerful women giving birth and...
Yeah, tiger stripes.
I did this, and I think that's...
The mark of your baby.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, Bumpy Gal, how are you doing? I'm going to wave back at you. There you go. Sorry you're late.
Bumpy Gal has asked a question.
Hey, oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry you're late. Well, it's okay, but please don't do it again. I will be paying attention. Thank you for joining us. It's very kind of you. Okay, yeah. So how much contouring can you do during a tummy tuck, please, in litres and areas? Right. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's specific.
Love it.
Shall I, Ted?
I know, you look like a Bond villain.
All right. Well, Mr. Bond, we've been expecting you. I must be the tamest Bond villain ever. I mean, look at him. I'm not exactly sinister, am I? I'm not doing it well. Right. So, how much body contouring can we achieve? Okay, first of all, in litres, absolute cutoff, 5 litres liposuction on its own, 3 litres liposuction with a tummy tuck, and that is a cutoff that is imposed on us by the hospitals, who have decided after a review that's what they consider safe. Even if we think more is safe, we're not allowed to do it. So that's it. That's as much as you're getting. It didn't change my practice actually, because 5 litres a session is a lot of liposuction to put yourself through. 3 litres with a tummy tuck, that's huge. That's really huge. If you had 3 litres of liposuction to do in addition to your tummy tuck, then you probably needed to lose weight before the tummy tuck, because you're not going to get the result you would otherwise get with weight loss. So those are the maximums. We're not realistically going to hit those. On a big day, when I'm doing a full tummy tuck with a lot of liposuctioning, I might achieve 2.5 litres on a really big day, on a big person. Much more frequently, I'm in the sort of 1.3 to 1.5 litre range. And with people who kind of don't have a great need for fat thinning, but I'm only liposuctioning them for contouring, giving them a sort of midline groove, giving some semilunar line definition and just taking down the flanks a bit, it might be under a litre. So that is how much in terms of volume. What about areas? Yeah. So a lipo-abdominoplasty or a Brazilian tummy tuck, however you want to call it, would routinely involve liposuction to the entire front of the abdominal wall and the flanks. I don't know how many areas you want to call the front of the abdominal wall. Some people call it 1, some people call it 6. So whatever that is to you, that's what is routine, plus the flanks. Some people call flanks 1 area, or some people call them 4. So again, whatever you wish. Now, that's routine. I often liposuction the mons as well, the bikini area. But since you have such good exposure to the mons, there is in fact a dirty great cut just above it, so I can see everything that's there. You don't always need to liposuction it. You can just open excise the fat in that area. And some people then have additional requests. So if they may wish to do the mid back, so the flanks comes to about, is the sort of, if you think of the back in thirds, the flanks is the lower third of that, the mid back is the middle third, and the upper back is obviously the upper third. And if you want to do the mid back or higher, then that is not part of a lipo-abdominoplasty, but it can be done at the same time. But that is very much an additional procedure. And the reason that I have that as my cut-off, that is where we have crossed the line into a different operation, is really simple. At that point, I can no longer do the operation entirely in the abdominoplasty position, which is you on your back with your arms out. To get round the back, I tilt from side to side to get as far round as possible. But essentially, that's it. That's where I'm limited to. If you want to go to the mid back and higher, then part of your operation has to be done with you lying in the so-called prone position. Prone means face down. So there's a lot different about how the operation is done. The anesthesia is somewhat different. You have a reinforced tube that is put down, so the tube is different. You are more deeply anaesthetized because of that larger reinforced tube. And a team has to be brought in halfway through the operation, well, not halfway, early on in the operation, to turn you both from the position you're anaesthetized, which is lying on your back, to face down, and then again, once that bit of liposuction done, back to face up again to complete the operation. And we have to do it in that order as well, by the way. We can't end with the back stuff, because during an abdominoplasty operation, the table is bent in the middle, and you need to be left in that bent position, otherwise, the closure is too tight. So we can't turn you onto your front in that funny bent position. It just wouldn't work. Be a bit dangerous. So that's why that is the sort of difference. So that's what's routine and that's what's extra. Yeah, he is cute, isn't he? I know. He's good looking. He's not very bright, but he's a good looking dog.
Talking about the dog, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, right, back to this. I was looking to see if there were any more messages, questions on there, but there aren't. Okay, this one. Can I have cosmetic surgery with a high BMI? For those of you not in the know, BMI, body mass index, and you can work out your body mass index by your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters times itself. So it's kilograms per meter squared. So get your height in meters, but times it by itself. Write that down. Get your weight in kilograms. Divide the weight in kilograms by the number you've just worked out. Your height in meters multiplied by itself, and that is your BMI.
Or go to NHS and they.
Or just look online for a BMI calculator. Type them in,
NHS
and it will do it for you.
One.
Yeah. There's loads online. But anyway, it will give you a number, and hopefully, ideally, that number will be between 20 and 25. That is the perfect ideal range for a person to live at. And sometimes I meet someone who pops in and they've got a BMI of 22.5, and I congratulate them for being, boom, right down the middle. Most of us are not. So my BMI tends to cruise at around 26. For many years, it cruised at around 28. And so while my BMI was around 28, my definition in my head of being slim was a BMI of 28. I will operate on someone with a weight-related condition up to a BMI of 32. So in some places the cutoff is BMI of 30, but actually, if you've had massive weight loss, a lot of the weight that you're carrying around will be on the abdominal apron that you're there to have surgery for, and you're not going to be able to, to treadmill off that weight on that redundant skin that's just hanging off you. So if it's for a weight loss related thing, then a BMI up to 32 is fine for me. But I will encourage patients to get down to that. And even massive weight loss patients who have been really, really heavy tend to be able to achieve a BMI of or around 32. And that really does maximize your outcome. The other important thing is that if the BMI is substantially above 32, then it starts to increase complication risks, wound healing problems, wound breakdown, delayed wound healing, wound infection, DVT, pulmonary embolism. This is all bad karma. So getting your BMI lower than that is important. And actually, it can have these really positive. We had a patient. We had a patient who came and saw me a while ago, and her BMI was too high for surgery. And I have said to her, you know, you've got to lose weight. We offer support for weight loss. We have a nutritionist and we have a personal trainer. And many people go off and find their own resources locally as well. And she has contacted us today. If you're watching, hey, I'm really happy to hear this. Contacted us today, and her BMI is now 29.
29.5.
29.5, and it was in the high 30s. So, you know, just amazing. And she's going to get such a better result than she would have done if I had just agreed to her surgery a year ago.
And she's worked hard for it.
Yeah. Oh God, has she?
Yeah,
you were on the phone to her.
Yeah, she's worked hard.
Oh,
bless her.
just amazing. I'll get the whole story when I talk to her. Hello. Gosh, hello. People waving at me. I don't have a wave sign next to you, otherwise I would. Hello, Cam Katir. Right, next question. It's coming up. Okay. What can be done for a C-section, for a cesarean section, overhang, or a muffin top? Okay. This question came in earlier, and I had to ask what a muffin top was, and it's a top that looks like a muffin. Yeah, that bulges out of the...
jeans.
Yeah, right. Okay, a muffin top. Okay, I get that. Which is not the same, though. The question says C-section overhang or muffin top. C-section overhang is not therefore a muffin top, right?
I think generally if women are going to get a sort of a bulge, it would be around that midset from your...
Okay. All right.
Around there, and often hanging over the top of the jeans.
My producer, PA, manager, wife.
Hi.
Okay, so the C-section overhang, really, really common, and it's caused partly by...
The groaning is the dog.
The groaning is the dog. We don't have a nuisance caller on the line.
He purrs.
If ever you phone up while we're on lockdown and you hear purring during your phone call, it is the dog purring, and he... Yeah, hello. I love you too, Ted. Yeah, that's what's going on there. So C-sections, scars, tend to stick down and they tether, and so any fat that's immediately under it is compressed, and the fat above kind of is pushed up and bulges over, and that can be, you know, yeah, everyone, you know, women hate that, don't you? If you've got that, you've been trim and you've been used to being trim, and you've got this bulge. Contour wobbles and irregularities upset people in general, and they catch the eye. So yeah, there's loads of ways of addressing it. If you have a tummy tuck, it will be addressed as part of a tummy tuck. In fact, your cesarean section scar will usually be removed. It will usually be lowered. The scar you end up with is usually lower than a cesarean section scar, and you know it should be blended in and contoured in reasonably well, more or less well, and certainly not with a bulge, you know, a C-section bulge. Similarly for the flanks. It can be addressed obviously without undergoing a full abdominoplasty, and liposuction alone will handle that, but you don't even need to go that invasively to address these things either. Cool sculpting, fat freezing, but we really recommend cool sculpting as your means of fat freezing, can really address that very nicely. And if your concern is literally C-section overhang, muffin top, then that would probably be my gold standard go-to. If you look elsewhere on the YouTube channel, look at Rebecca's video on, because that was really what you disliked about your tummy, wasn't it? C-section overhang.
And I thought I needed a tummy tuck.
Yeah, and so Bex thought she needed a tummy tuck. She wanted me to do it, and I can't do it because she's my wife. And so we have cool sculpting at our clinic. Tried the cool sculpting, and the results are phenomenal. I mean, no tummy tuck needed. So go and have a look at that. It really was, was very impressive, and we seem to get very good results. I don't do the cool sculpting service at my clinic. That is Jenna, who is watching, and I think cool sculpting is offered in all sorts of places, but we do seem to get really good results, and I do think there is an element of operator dependence on it, and I think Jenna is brilliant at it. Hey Jenna, miss you. We can't wait to get back to work. Hope you're doing all right.
Yeah, we love you, Jenna.
Be soon. It will be soon. Right, next question. Okay, this one is one eyebrow is higher than the other. Can I even them out with Botox, or the question's too long, it's going off the thing. Can I even them out with Botox or any other non-surgical treatment? Okay, yeah, we get people coming in with this as a concern reasonably often. I'm just going to shout out to Mo. Hello Mo, for joining in. I haven't seen you in years, except at conferences. Great to see you. So it's how can we address eyebrow asymmetry? Okay, I mean, Botox is the gold standard. It's a really great way of doing that. It's temporary. You can kind of play around with it, and if you don't like how it goes, then you can, it's going to wear off. It's not a problem. In terms of how it's addressed with Botox, you've got two choices, haven't you? Or three choices. You can either lower the higher brow, raise the lower brow, or do a bit of both. In fact, it is so much easier to lower the higher brow, but that's not usually what you want if you're a woman. Most women would like their brows sort of be raised and arched, and that's a kind of nice feminine, if you see that, as I do that, I'm immediately quite feminized, and it's not a great look on a man. There are some criteria for aesthetic eyebrows defined by Ellen Bogan and colleagues, in fact. And there's a sort of 5-point checklist, and one of them for women is a sort of flare at the outer third, and one of them for men is actually that it's a relatively horizontal eyebrow. So yeah, we could flatten your eyebrows really easily, one eyebrow, and symmetrize them. It's not what you normally want. So we like to try and raise one. Raising is more difficult, but you can raise the eyebrows. Here's a if you're watching and you're a practitioner, here's something you can do. So the muscle that raises the brow, the frontalis here, is what lifts up. It's pulling my brow upwards. But there is also a muscle that lowers the tail of the brow, and it's actually the muscle that's more usually associated with closing the eyes tight, called orbicularis oculi. Now look what happens when I scrunch my eyes tight. Look at this area here, and when I scrunch my eyes really tight, you're going to see some particular wrinkling here. Don't know if you saw that. I can't see because obviously my eyes are shut right now. But I presume you'll have seen some wrinkling around there. And that bit of my orbicularis, the superolateral orbicularis, has the effect of pulling the tail of my brow down. So when I did it, you should see my the outer bit of my brow just flatten, just lower slightly. See that? Now what you can do is get the patient to do that. Find those wrinkles there and just put a line of toxin underneath there, and that will prevent that lowering effect from happening. And although it happens most when I screw my eyes up really hard, it happens a bit all the time. There is some resting tone of that muscle. So by removing that resting tone on one side, you can raise one brow. There's another trick you can do, which is where if a bit of a muscle, so if a muscle has length, like frontalis, and you paralyze some of it, but not all of it, the remaining bits work harder. So we can paralyze frontalis right at the top, which means the rest of it is actually going to be working harder all the time and give you a slight raise. So that's another phenomenon that you can use to try and symmetrize. That's toxin, Botox, but other toxins are available. But that's the one we use. What else? So yes, there are other forms of skin tightening, so skin modality, and they can go a bit deeper and penetrate muscle. We like radiofrequency, and there's something called an ND blef, which can actually be taken above the brow and be used to raise the brow on one side. That can work nicely, just on one side. Both of those things will need to be repeated at intervals. And finally, there's the surgical approach, and you could have a one-sided brow lift, but I got the sense that we were looking at non-surgical interventions for doing that. Okay, so that's how that's done. Right, let me just catch up on any questions. Is there anything, do we think? Amy. Hi, do you need to be within BMI range for a tummy tuck? Yes, we covered that a little bit earlier. I don't know if you were here for that. I will do a tummy tuck up to a BMI of around 32. And I explain all about that. I'm not going to bore everyone else who did see that with a repeat, but this is going to be on my page, it's on my YouTube channel, and it's going to be on my Facebook as well. So you'll be able to replay that. Really good answer, you will love it. Okay, next question. What is this one? Oh, okay. It's about the treatment for saggy, uneven breasts, large areolae, and downward pointing nipples. So the question is, I have saggy, uneven breasts with large areolas and nipples pointing downwards. I'm considering getting a breast lift to correct them. Will I benefit from a lift without implants, or will implants be necessary to achieve the best results? No, you don't need implants. If you don't want to be larger, you don't need implants. Now, we get this a lot. We get this so much. People come along.
Once a week.
I mean,
on the live feed.
Once a week on the live feed and once a day in the clinic. People come along wanting a breast uplift. But there's this rumour out there that a breast uplift makes your breasts smaller. And I've heard people report different things back to me. They look online, you fall down the rabbit hole. Breast uplift makes your breasts 2 cup sizes smaller, 3 cup sizes smaller. I mean, my goodness. I mean, it doesn't. It does create the illusion perhaps of a slight reduction in size, depending on how you define size. The height of the breast will be reduced. So if that's how you're defining size in a mirror on height, then yeah, they'll be smaller. They increase projection. So if you define size by how much they project, which actually is how the bra manufacturers define size, then they will increase. So I try to get away from all of this. What do you think? What are we talking about? What are we, and if you come in, we will show you easily, visually, and simulate on you what a mastopexy will do on you. And the way we do that is by taping the underside of the breast. I'll attach some photos to these feeds when they go out. We tape the undersides of the breast in exactly the same way as we would do a mastopexy. It's like a non-surgical mastopexy that happens in the clinic, and it gets taped up and it's pretty secure. You can go home like that, and I've heard people say it lasts a few days. So you can see how you feel. And you will see exactly what size you would be. And if it's too big, then we won't do a mastopexy, we'll do a reduction, which includes a mastopexy. If they're too small, then yes, we'll think about how to enlarge you at the same time, either with implants or with fat graft or whatever it may be. And if they're just right, then they're just right, and you don't need anything else. Now, one thing I will say is that tape simulation gives a really kind of full upper part of the breast. It's kind of like you're wearing a corset, a wench top kind of thing. And that is not how it will stay with an uplift alone. It will look like that at first, sure. When you come back after a week, you'll think, wow, these are not going anywhere. But actually they do. They settle down and they fall into a more natural position. To my mind, for the better, they look better for it. But whether you like it, whether you prefer it up or prefer it more natural, they're going to fall down. But not much. I mean, it's a little bit of settling that happens over the first 3 to 4 weeks. And then that's it. That is how they will stay.
So here is an example. This lady came along for a mastopexy, and we have simulated what the result would look like with taping. She went on to have her mastopexy, and indeed the result is very similar to the taped result at 1 week. At 1 month, though, the result settles to a more natural breast position. There's less of that upper pole breast fullness here. It's more natural. I prefer it myself. That's typical.
Okay, can a hernia be repaired at the same time as a tummy tuck, or does it have to be 2 separate procedures? That will depend on the surgeon. That will depend on their happiness with and familiarity with hernia repairs, and it might depend on the kind of hernia and its severity as well. In short, I mean, I regularly encounter hernias during tummy tucks, umbilical hernias essentially, during a tummy tuck, and they will be repaired as part of the tummy tuck. That's just routinely what we do. Some surgeons, if they know that you've got a hernia in advance, will either work collaboratively with a general surgeon to do that, or will ask you to see them first, and then they'll sort it out afterwards. So it's very much down to you and your surgeon. Okay, I mean, I think it's worth knowing how to do it, because sometimes you find one that you didn't know was there, and it just would feel a bit not right just to leave it. So there you go. That's my rationale for that.
I have some questions that were sent in as well.
Okay.
Breast implant explantation.
Yeah.
When implants are removed, will an uplift be required, or will this be different from patient to patient?
Okay, so that's a really, really good question. I've actually so one of the many exciting things I've done during lockdown is review my series of explants. And I mean, I'm just so much fun at parties. This is strange. You can just do an explant, and people talking about the breast fluffing and this kind of stuff. So you can just do an explant and see how you go. Actually, maybe it's just the patients who come to me. Most of them decide not to do that, and most of them do end up having an uplift, and most of them also, because I offer it, end up having some kind of volume replacement. They don't want implants again necessarily, but they may want something. So I will often fat graft when I'm explanting, and that's called a vegan boob job. So mastopexy plus fat grafting and reshaping is called a vegan boob job. And that's usually what we do. If you're not sure, then a really good strategy is to just explant and see how you feel. Leave it 6 months, 12 months and see how you feel. The only real downside of doing that is you've had 2 operations when maybe you could have got it all done in one. The kind of scarring you would have after an explant is variable, and we will work that out with you, what kind you'll need. In my practice, it tends to be either one just around the nipple or one that's around the nipple and downwards, joining to the scar that you'll have had from your breast augmentation, so an anchor scar. Now, you might wonder how do I know, how can I get an idea of how it's going to look? Well, you can know. A really good clue is your nipple to sternal notch distance. I'm just going to, you've had thanks for putting this question forward. I'm going to get back to the board. Right.
There's more parts to the question, so
Okay. Nipple to sternal notch distance.
don't worry. I know there's more to come.
Can people see me? Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Talk when you're facing the camera.
Yeah. I'm going to be. So this is a person, and I'll just do this stuff so it looks like a person, and it's a person with breasts. So it's a woman person, if you will. And this is an important landmark. So if you feel down your neck until you hit the bone and that lovely curved bit there, that's called your sternal notch. And this distance is called the nipple to sternal notch distance. Now, there were some guys, a guy called Penn and colleagues, 1950s, worked out the ideal nipple to sternal notch distance by looking at a whole load of topless models. And they found out that ideal range is between 19 and 21. And these days we tend to extend that to about 18.5 to 21.5, ideal range. If you're average height, the taller you are, the longer it is. I've got one patient who's a little bit over 6 foot, and her ideal nipple to notch range is actually about 23 centimeters, which we worked out with different ways. But anyway, that's a really good rule of thumb. Now, if you have breast implants, you can disguise the fact that your nipple to sternal notch distance is a bit longer than ideal by the whole breast footprint having been lowered, or the fact that the breast implant pushes the nipple outwards so it sort of hinges forwards and appears to go up a bit. When the breast implant's removed, those influences will be gone. So what we can do before removing your breast implants is measure your nipple to sternal notch distance and tell you, look, if you're well outside that range, if we're looking at 25, 26, yeah, you're going to have quite droopy looking breasts, and you might want to preempt that and sort it out. If you're in the sort of 21, 22, 22 and a half range, then you might well be happy. The skin elasticity, it might recoil once all that force is taken off it. So that might be a situation where you just wait and see.
Part of the same question.
Okay.
Is a support bra required to be worn after, and how long will scar tape need to be kept on for?
Okay, first of all, the support bra, yes. I really do like you to wear a support bra. It is not the same as a sports bra. They're very different beasts. A sports bra compresses the breasts in. A surgical support bra cups the breasts and supports them. The clue's in the name. So they're quite different, and I really do recommend a specialist surgical support garment. They're so the way to go. We're not affiliated to one brand, but we do have discount codes that we can give you if you're shopping around. So you can get the real deal for about the same price as what you might find as a substitute on the high street, and it really is worth doing. They have all these other things as well, these other features that we as the surgical team really like. Detachable straps, so straps that you can actually detach and then reattach. It's really important. If you imagine you are lying face down, face up, with tubes and lines and things coming out of each hand. So how do we get this bra on you other than feeding it through all sorts of drips and stuff, unless we can detach and reattach it? So that's really, really helpful.
Is it different to a garment? Is it different to a binder?
We're talking about bras.
Yeah, binder and garments difference.
We're talking about bras.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Sorry.
So surgical bras. And what was the last? Oh, surgical tape. Scar taping. I like you to wear scar tape. You've heard me say this before if you tune into these. I like you to wear scar tape for 3 months. And the reason is I like the scar not to be pulled at all for a total of 3 months. There's a cell type that responds to being pulled, responds to being stretched, the myofibroblast, which leaves after about 3 months. It responds by being stimulated to produce more scar tissue. So if you don't want a big, thick, bulky scar, it's 3 months of scar taping. Actually, it's really well tolerated. People forget they're doing it. Right, shall I go back to these?
That question.
Okay, has that covered you? Now, Hulurxzy, I know who you are. It's good to see you again, but I shan't say your name. Do you have any idea when you will be back up and running? Hope you're all safe. I hope you're safe too. I hope you're well. Do you have any idea? Yeah, as soon as possible is the short and probably most honest answer.
As soon as it's safe.
Yeah, as soon as we can do it safely. We have no insight, we have no special knowledge, but we're starting to get the sense that lockdown is going to be brought to a gradual close from next week. Where that means in terms of us reopening is unclear, but we are kind of all starting to make preparations for a reopening. We're sort of getting more PPE, we're thinking about our policies. We've got a situation in place where patients arriving at our clinic can sit in their cars, text us, and so they walk straight into the treatment room, straight out again. They don't need to bypass reception and wait there. So there's, we're putting measures in place. So that's clinic. Surgery, we have again been giving this a lot of thought. We've cancelled all bookings up to June, and we have not been accepting new bookings in the month of May. But we haven't cancelled our June ones, and we believe that June onwards is quite likely to go ahead. And that's the best we can say. It's quite likely to go ahead. If it doesn't, then it's out of our hands and we can't do anything about it. We've been in touch with the hospitals that we work with, and one of our major concerns was that the operating lists that we do have, our dates, might be taken away from us to do other stuff. Now they've told us that that's not the case, and that the lists that we already have remain in place, so we can book onto those with the proviso that we may be cancelling them if elective surgery hasn't recommenced by then. What has changed is our ability to obtain extra lists. So we have some lists, some operating time that is just there rigidly, and we also have additional space that we ask for on an ad hoc basis, and we do that quite a lot because we often need more than we have. And I believe our capacity to get more operating time is going to be greatly limited for the next 6 to 12 months probably. I also think our throughput of cases is going to be reduced because of all the extra precautions, and all that will mean that less surgery in total will be happening. And I think the cost of delivering it is going to go up, and I think the costs are likely to rise. So as an aside, if you are thinking about surgery and you haven't had a quote, get in touch, get a quote from us, get it from other surgeons. You can get a quote actually with very little obligation or cost. So just get your quote locked down, because that will be quite helpful, because that will define the price that has been agreed with you for a period of time. And I think it's going to be cheaper today than it will be in a month's time. So bear that in mind.
I think you missed one on Instagram.
Oh, did I?
Is the hernia repair something you would do with the tummy tuck?
No, we've done that.
But it was asked again after we'd spoken about it, so if you could just address it really quickly.
Okay.
Is it something you do as a matter of course, or?
Oh, right. So is it something I would do? Yeah. So yeah, if I find an umbilical hernia there, or a para-umbilical hernia, then that gets repaired as part of your tummy tuck if I'm doing it. And that varies depending on where you go, but yeah, that's something I would do. And it says, I've been highly recommended. Oh, bless you. Well, that's really kind. It's really nice to hear. Thank you. Maybe I'll hear from you. Okay, right. I think, oh gosh, it's 10 to 8, so it's nearly NHS clapping time, so I've got to wind up soon anyway. But last question, so it is well timed. If any, there's another question there too. Okay, penultimate question. Are post-op's kind of similar. Are post-op garments included in surgery, or do I need to buy something? Again, people's practice changes here. For us, it's slightly confusing, I guess. A post-op garment is included as long as it's not your breast garment. For breast stuff, you end up having to buy your own bra, but the hospitals that we work with will supply you with an abdominal binder. They will not supply, so that's a corset, it's a binder. It's not a garment as such. It's something that wraps around you and compresses. You may well want to get something in addition to that, which is a true garment, because it contours better, it fits better. The trouble is you don't know what size to get at first. So you're better off getting this sort of compressive thing that the hospital provides you with at first, and then upgrading yourself in a week or two's time when you're able to just get something that's more comfortable, doesn't keep riding up, doesn't keep folding over and creasing. So for the non-breast stuff, it will be in hand for you at least for the first week or two, so you don't need to stress too much about it. But for the breast stuff, you will be wearing the same bra for the first 6 weeks, so you can get that yourself, and that's the same thing that you'll be wearing the whole time, and that's what we put you into from theatre.
Please, can you just reassure Hilary's?
Yes.
She's on our list.
Okay. So to add, my appointment for surgery was the 26th of May. Is that for the surgery itself or for...
I believe so.
That's actually for the surgery.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll answer either way. Will I have to rebook this myself, or will you let me know when you can book me in? Okay.
Be on my radar. It's on my radar.
Okay, so you've just told Rebecca. And like I say, I can tell her who you are. Do you know who she is?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, if it's a clinic appointment and we were... it's a clinic appointment, or was the surgery itself? Just say clinic or surgery.
I know who she is.
Okay, well, okay. So for clinic appointments, we'll do it virtually, but we have met virtually. We'd like to meet in person. So yeah, we'll reschedule that with you if needs be. If it's surgery, yeah, then again, surgery. Yes, if it's surgery, then Rebecca will be in touch with you. So every time there is someone whose surgery isn't going ahead, and she's in touch, she speaks to you personally, and she talks about a plan for rescheduling.
She's on my radar.
Oh, okay. So she knows exactly what's going on with you, and she is
doing
sorting
everything
it
I
out. Okay, I'm feeling a phone call coming on at some point.
I'll call you tomorrow.
All right, so she's going to call you tomorrow. It's in hand. I don't know what happens there, but it's in hand.
But I do.
Okay. Any more last minute questions? If not, I'm going to sign out. We've got 6 minutes. 6 minutes to get pots and pans, stand on the balcony or in your garden or whatever, and applaud the NHS.
And the last thing to say about that is...
And the last thing to say about applauding the NHS is tonight is Thursday, which means tomorrow is Friday, which means it is Hydrofacial Friday. Every Friday we are giving away... every Friday during lockdown, we're giving away a hydrofacial to an NHS worker that one of you nominates. So please get your nominations in. If you look at my Facebook and my Instagram feeds, you'll see a post there about Hydrofacial Friday, and just nominate your NHS worker. We pick one every time. Tell us a bit about them as well, so that we can, give some background to why they deserve this. It's a really great way of restoring faces that have been wrecked by PPE. So it's really, really, it's just very little something that we are trying to do to help. Guys, you take care. I will see you next week. Keep your emails and questions coming in. I really love them. You take care. It's good to see you. Bye now.